Hi, everybody. Rob Provencher here at my studio. It's a week before Christmas. I think 2 weeks before Christmas. And we're getting quiet around the studio. It's a Saturday afternoon. We did have one photo shoot booked out on location, and it's postponed because it's actually raining out. And yeah, it's raining. There's lots of snow, and it's been snowing a lot, but now it's raining. It's going to be warm tomorrow, and then it'll be cold again. Welcome to the North. That's just the way it is. So I want to talk to you about goals because it's that time of year for me. I like to start thinking about my goals for the next year. I do goals every year and I write them out. I put them in a book. I have one of those journals that my daughter typically buys me one every year. And it's something that I make daily notes in and other ideas that I get in the morning. The first thing I do in the morning is I review the goals and I write down in my journal a daily entry. If it's not a lot of an entry, it's something. Every day I write something. It's the first thing I do. I don't like checking out social media or emails or doing anything else other than doing that first thing in the morning. So, yeah, December. It's the month. It's the month when I start to think about goals and what it is I want for next year. And I'm going to give you some strategies. I want to do a bit of a deep dive and talk about some timeless strategies for goal setting, the importance of goal setting, and also a few other dystopian comments. I hope you like my mug. You know what movie this is from, eh? THX 1138. This is from the same movie. You can't read that, it's out of focus, but it's from a scene from the movie. And Google it. It's George Lucas's first big film ever before he got into American Graffiti and Star Wars and all the other films that he got into. So it's a very telling movie. It was created and was produced and shot in the early 70s, I think 71, 72. It's one of my favorite movies. And the reason I bring it up is because there are a lot of similarities, in my opinion, as to where we're going to now. So you could also compare it to George Orwell's 1984, but that's not what I want to get into. Well, I do, but I don't. While talking about that stuff in context of goal setting. So there's a lot of strategies. You've probably heard them all insofar as goal setting is concerned. So again, I like to think on what I want for the next year. And it's funny, I'm 63 years old now. And when I hit 50, my goals started to sort of migrate into health-based goals. And it's, I guess, not a coincidence that as we get older, our priorities change. I don't want to take over the photography industry anymore. There was a time when I wanted to maintain a certain annual volume. I do want to do some, but I'm happy with where we're at now. It's probably a third of what we used to do, but you know, we used to do a lot. We had one and a half times employees, and you know, it kind of ties you down at the same time. And I often say to myself, you know, if I was 20, 30 years younger, I would do this, I would do this, I would have all these massive plans. So I don't want to hold you back if you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s even. Go for the big goals, the big audacious goals. There's a lot of opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, in photography and in the photography industry to still succeed if you're willing to set some clear goals and to do what you need to do to succeed at them. Sometimes we got to get out of our own way, and sometimes we have to clear out the cobwebs and clear out what I call CBS, which is just an acronym for calcified brain shit. I didn't come up with that. It was Gary Halbert, one of the best marketers of all time. Gary Halbert would often bring that up, calcified brain shit. You know, we have these thoughts and thought processes and these ideas that are stuck. They're stuck in our head, and they're stopping us from expanding our viewpoint or looking beyond whatever it is that we're stuck on. So So yeah, December is the time of the year you want to start thinking about your goals. And I recommend that you give it some thought, think about where it is you want to go. And there's a bunch of areas. Now, I created a goal setting boot camp back in 2015. I'm going to put the link to that in the description below. And by the way, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. I'd like to have you on board, and put your comments down. If you want to ramp up your goals, put your comments down in the comments section. Tell me what your goals are, or what you're thinking your goals will be for next year. I always tell people that don't overthink it. Just spontaneously come up with 5 to 10 goals. Watch that replay. That's going to give you a lot of direction, a lot of ideas as to how to create strategies. And I highly recommend you check that out. And there's a link also to a goals PDF, and that's going to even give you a further deep dive. So highly encourage you to do that. And if you're kind of like not feeling inspired and you're not motivated, make a comment. Say, hey, I'm not feeling inspired. I wish I were. Sometimes that's all we need, is to take that little action step. So anyways, it's important. And as I get older and wiser, I'm hopefully wiser, I think about truth. What is truth? It's more philosophical. You could almost say it's a spiritual thing too. Our words are our truth, whether they're spoken or written. So what you say, how you say it, who you say it to, and how you say who you say it to will often determine our words, and our words will determine our destiny. Think on that one. Chew on that one for a bit. Our words will determine our destiny. So that's a revelation that came to me, and it's also tied into goals, because our goals are based on words, language. We decide we're going to do this, this, and that. We're going to pursue these different areas, and we describe them using words. You might think it's kind of silly, but do not underestimate the power of words. Likewise, I said earlier, just a few seconds ago, that your words, the way they're spoken to others, is important. So if you meet someone and you're philosophically on the opposite side of the tracks as they are, politically, spiritually, philosophically, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're upset by where they're at, that says more about you than them. So the goal is to say, you know what? Everyone's human. We're all equal on that playing field. So I'm going to respect their views. And it's easy, so easy to get triggered, especially in today's day and age. There's so much fear going around with the whole COVID 1984 thing going on. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second and reveal some of where I'm at with all that. But I want to talk about it only in context of goal setting. So that's important. So yeah, your words are important. I want you to think on that and to be true to yourself and to apply words. If you just think about it, it doesn't really count. If you write it out, speak it out, you will manifest your words and your destiny with much more potency. So in that preview that the previous goal setting boot camp, I've done so many of those. I've done many goal setting seminars live and via webinar and what have you. And I often talk about the Aladdin principle, the movie Aladdin. It blew me away when I saw that movie in the early 90s. You remember the genie comes out and he says, you got three wishes, 3 conditions. The conditions are you can't kill anybody, you cannot make somebody fall in love with you, and you cannot wish for more wishes. And that just blew me away. I talk about it, and I'm not going to get into it in great detail now, but I talk about it in the first boot camp. I'll just quickly breeze through it. So the reason he said you can't kill anybody, it means you can't use it for evil. That's the interpretation that I applied to it. You can't use it for wrongdoing. You can't take somebody else's free will or somebody else's life away. You cannot do it. Your goals will not work. You can't make somebody fall in love with you, meaning you cannot do it for somebody else. You cannot, like, I can't say, okay, geez, I wish my wife would do this, and that's my goal. That's not a goal. That says you trying to control and or impose your will on somebody else. So you have to do it for yourself. It's only for you, and it can only be done for good. And if you're guilty, or if you feel guilty, or if you feel ashamed because of whatever, you don't feel you're worthy, that says way more about you and where you're at. And it's something you have to honestly take a look at and decide, what do I need to do to work through that? And as part of this deep dive, I want to talk about that a little more. But the Aladdin thing, I'll just finish off with that first. So yeah, you can't, there are 3 conditions. You can't kill someone. You can't make somebody fall in love with you, which means you cannot affect another person's destiny or their free will. And you can't wish for more wishes, which means you have one life, and you got to think real hard about what it is you want. You only get 3 wishes, right? There's a limit. There's only so much time available on this planet. And choose wisely. Choose early if you can. Now, if you're older, there's a different journey that we're on. I'm 63. And again, I'm told you that my goals, the priorities are different. And I got to admit, there's more of a spiritual aspect to it, a spiritual curiosity. And it's probably because I feel like I've achieved a lot. I've got a lot of the skills that I want, but I never want to rest on my laurels. Okay, so there's that. And I want, health is important, and I just want to become a better person, but in a different way. They change. 30 years ago, I wanted to have a family, and I wanted more money and more prestige. These things don't matter to me as much anymore. So why do we do goals? We do goals because we want to be the best we can be. And that's different for everybody. It's different for you and me. It's different for everybody in your life. It's different for every single individual on this planet. So we're all with different limitations, and we're all with different challenges, and we're all with different destinies. So it's personal. It requires discipline. And we got to be aware of the fact that we're all human, and we're all prone to living in fear. Fear is such a relevant and prevalent human emotion, especially in the last year and a half, if you know what I mean. I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of irrational fear. And one thing that's helped me quite a bit in my lifelong discovery of success tips and strategies and applications is through Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and his other books. Absolute genius stuff, and it's nothing new. Others have written about the same stuff as well. But he has a chapter or a principle. I don't think it's in Think and Grow Rich. He touches on it, but it's more so in his other books, and it's called Accurate Thinking. So, Tony Robbins in his personal power program in the late 80s said this. He said, you don't want to have a goal that's irrational. You don't want to wish for a sunset from the east when the sun always sets in the west. You can't be stupid about it, So, and besides the 3 conditions I told you about, this applies to having goals that are realistic and being rational about it and being accurate. So there's many, many ways that I can dissect that concept, but I want to give you the quick summary and sort of explain to you in this, just as few ideas and point you in the right direction. So look at fears and what it is you're afraid of, and realize that there's that human side to all of us, and we're prone to fear. We're absolutely prone to fear. I think it's the book Sapiens. Amazing read, by the way. I'm pretty sure it's that book, and he talks about the evolution of humans. I've always been fascinated, and I've wondered about how many how many ways with which we've been affected by evolution, and where we're going. But evolutionarily speaking, humans, for the Homo sapiens and then all the proto-humans that came before us, that's a long evolutionary timeline. And for the majority of our time on this planet, looking at all versions of humanity, we have been middle of the pack when it came to the dominance hierarchy. So we were predator and prey at the same time. So we were being preyed upon, and we were somewhere in the middle. There were, these to be feared predators above us who would, easily kill us if they found us. So that's part of our DNA. That changed literally, evolutionarily speaking, like that overnight when we discovered technology and fire and tools, and we learned to work together. So we're still neurotic messes. We're still scared. We still have that in us because that was like literally just yesterday on the evolutionary timeline. So that explains a lot of why we're so damn neurotic and so damn prone to fears all the time. I personally think fear is not only the most destructive behavior or emotion, but it is the most addictive. It's like heroin or worse. You can see that by the way people just love watching the mainstream media and getting all this bad news. It scares them, and we love that. It sounds weird, but it's true. And be honest with yourself. You love this, man, to some degree or other. And some of us are totally hooked on it. The idea that we're fearful and that we have to have our daily dose of fear. And that's the dominant emotion that is the most addictive. There's other ones like the dopamine hits that we get from social media, and it's all fakery. It's all fakery. You feel good about yourself for a second, but it's totally false. The way sugar is false. Sugar as a nutrition is completely false. I'm not talking about eating fruits and vegetables in moderation. I'm talking about eating processed sugars. There's so much of that in our diet, and it's affecting us in such a negative way. But it's largely because at a physical level, at the nutritional level, we love that instant gratification. Yeah, a bag of chips, and if you have a meal which is pure decadence, it's usually a combination of fake fats and sugar, or the fake sugars like the high fructose diets and the corn oils and all that stuff. And it just triggers that. Yeah, and it's so primitive. So that's all in the same category of things that affect us and make us addictive, but they're all very negative and very destructive. And it's something I've become very much aware of for the most part, and especially focused in on the last 5 to 10 years, especially, both for my physical and mental health, and for my philosophical and spiritual health as well. So I hope I'm making sense here with all of this, but give you something to think about, I hope. If you have any questions, comment below. I want to hear what you have to say. So where was I? So we want to have these goals to be the best we can be, and we have to be aware of our limitations, our physicalities, what we're prone to, what our messes are, what our addictions are, and we have to make it very, very personal. So it's all about you. And I am what? What are you? So say to yourself, I am, and I am magnanimous. I am creative. I am healthy. I don't know that there's a more powerful affirmation than that. So anyways, I'm getting off track, and I want to get things going here, back on track. So all I know is that in my life that I've had consistently success by having goals, by using affirmations, and applying goals and affirmations, and self-awareness and self-help, and doing the work on myself that I need to do. and recognizing that it's more about me than anyone else. So whenever I get triggered by somebody else's life, I'm like, Robbie, that's not about you. That's about them. Just let it go. So I'm getting better at it. And again, that's part of the spiritual journey, by the way. You know, I mentioned earlier that my goals change as I get older. Some of the things that can happen specifically to men. So I'm talking from a male perspective here when it comes to the spiritual journey. I think it's kind of modified a little bit for each and every one of us, and also gender-based. But a man who tries to maintain his youth becomes an old fool. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen people like that. And I'm aware of that. I'm like, Rob, don't try and maintain your youth. You can't. Time. There's one thing you cannot change, and that is time. It's like numbers. There's so much truth in math and numbers. You cannot mess with numbers. 1 + 1 = 2, period. Not 2.2 or 2.3. It's the same thing with time. I'm 63 years old. My life, my timeline, and where I'm going is a fact. It'll come no matter what. God willing, I live another day, and I live a long, happy, prosperous, healthy life. So, but my point is that if I go down the wrong road as I get older, I'm going to put myself in a bad way. And the old fool is one way with which you can see that with a lot of guys. And I don't want that. So I want to be like, okay, I'm getting older. Let's do the best I can be. And part of that is being like, a little bit like a Gandalf, he's the wise wizard, and younger people look to advice, look for guidance, and look for leadership. So, if I was growing my hair and making this gray go away and dressing 30 years younger because I didn't like the fact that I was getting old, I'm not fooling anybody. So that's, I say all that because it's important to put that in context of goals. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. 63, my goals are different. My goals have deeper, more spiritual, philosophical components to them, and where I want to go in life and how I want to define those goals is in part largely influenced by my age. So, and that's just a fact of life. I'm cool with that. It is what it is. And I also look at my whole life. So let me just give you another example too, something that I would not really have thought of, say, 10 years ago. I look back at my life and I find I do this more and more. And I look back and there's some stuff I look back at and I go, oh, geez, what the hell was I thinking? I'm in a 12-step program, 31 years sober, and I like going to those meetings. I really enjoy them. I get a lot from them, especially in these days, especially during lockdowns when there's, when they tell me I can't run my business. So at least I get to connect with others. And one of the steps they have is a step 4 and step 5. They're the most important steps going. And in many ways, you might say those are goals, but they're pretty damn deep. So step 4 is you make a list of all people you had harm and became willing to make amends to them, unless when to do so would cause harm. That's pretty self-evident. So, if you did something really bad 20 years ago, and if you reveal that something bad and it caused your spouse to really resent you for life and possibly divorce you, and it's like something that happened 20 plus years ago and you'd never do it again, it's because you were like a drunkard or whatever, don't tell her that. So you got to be practical about it in that sense. And step 5 is admit it to another person. Admit it to yourself, to another person, and to God, the exact natures of your these shortcomings and these wrongs. And that's important, that's important because it allows you to not live in the past. You sort of purge. It's a purge. You purge that stuff out. So I say that because sometimes we have a lot of goals that we want to achieve, and we feel some sort of sense of remorse, resentment. We have these inner barriers that hold us back. And yeah, I often think a lot of it is based on trauma, and we have to stop beating ourselves up and come to terms with it so that we can put ourselves in an okay place. You know, if you ever watch that movie with Robin Williams, what's it called? You know, where he plays a counselor, and the guy who he's counseling, who's a famous actor, Free Will Hunting. Come on, you know the guy. Anyways, there's a scene in the movie where he finally breaks through, and the character that he's counseling, he's like a real intelligent, like epically smart individual, but he's also got trauma and resistance. And he finally breaks through, and he breaks down and starts crying on his shoulders. And that's the breakthrough, you know, that's the breakthrough moment where he, from that moment on in his life, he acquires peace. I mean, the trauma's there, but he's at a higher level of consciousness. And when you do that, you're able to now participate in your, whatever virtues and potentiality you have in your life will rise to a higher level as well with you. We all rise. I mean, you got two directions. You can go downwards and backwards, or you can go forward. And if we go forward and we have these roadblocks, these barriers, these traumas that are slowing us down, we need to come to peace with them. And that's why I believe step 4 and step 5 are so important in the 12-step program. If you're curious what I'm talking about, just even if you're not an alcoholic or an addict of, you know, any sort, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still a powerful thing. Just Google it, step 4 and step 5, and you'll see what I mean. So anyways, I said I wanted to get into a deep dive, and that's what I'm doing. I'm getting into a deep dive. So I personally have not started to really achieve my goals. And I'm talking about, like, I feel I've had a pretty good life. And when I was, my teenage were shit years, but my 20s were okay. I drank a lot, and things didn't really click for me until I sobered up at the age of 31, and boom, everything happened. So, you know, it was like everything before then was this. And then after that, it was like, that was expansive and potentiality and nothing but creativity, prosperity, and good health and good mojo and a lot of good stuff like that. There's a reason why I brought that up, and I can't remember what it is, but it'll come back to me, I'm sure. So when I look back at my life, sometimes I feel guilt, or things come back to me, and I'm like, okay, I got to process that stuff. I got to work through it and rise to a new level. And I believe we do that through goals and pushing through self-awarenesses and doing activities that are going to be, well, I don't want to say fearless, but there's going to be fear, but I'm going to act anyways. So I'm going to push through it anyways. So, you know, and that's, you know, I don't think this is anything that you finally get to the end game and, yep, you got it. Okay, I don't have to do that anymore. This is an ongoing thing for life. You're always, I'll speak for myself. I'm always working on myself in that respect. So, you know, and for me, I feel very fortunate because I'm a photographer and I get to earn a living with taking pictures. God, take pictures. And I love taking pictures. I love being with other people. So it's important to me that I constantly stay on top of that sort of momentum and never take it for granted and never slow down. So, yeah. So I want to get into some closing thoughts and strategies, but I want to mention some of the personal issues that I've had in the last year and a half. And when I say the last year and a half, I put it in context as to what's going on. And I think there's a lot of lies, and there's a lot of nonsense, and there's possibly some really dark times ahead. And I really had a hard time dealing with that. I literally sank into a depression, and there was a dark cloud and there's the black dogs of depression were nipping at my heels constantly. I feel like I've always been a very resilient person, so I was able to get through it without medication, without feeling that I was vulnerable and or tempted to any kind of outside pharmaceutical intervention of any type, whether it's booze, drugs, or pharmaceuticals from a doctor. I'm clean and I'm organic, and that's the way I want to stay. So my worst habit is coffee. A little bit of caffeine ain't so bad. And so for me, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? Knowing what I just mentioned to you, what do I need to do to get through this? And I think that's an important question that we all got to ask ourselves. What do I need to do? So you need to know what it is that's troubling you, or what's the problem. You ask yourself, okay, I'm having issues with this and this and this. And if you cannot see it in your behavior, at least you'll know deep in your soul if it's something that's bothering you. You know yourself. Look in the mirror. So when I said if it's something that is manifested through your actions, you'll know. Like if you're excessively doing something and it's unhealthy, then this is what I'm doing and it's unhealthy, and I need to look at that. I'm not saying you got to go out and fix it right now. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is self-awareness, self-assessment. Say, okay, look, this is bothering me, and this is what I'm doing. This is what I don't like about myself. So in the grand scheme of goal setting, I call those messes. And if you watch the replay, I talk about that. I'm not going to get into it, but the idea that there's messes is very, very important. And it's important that you be honest with yourself. So, and for me, it was like I just mentioned, the last year and a half, and I pushed through, and I feel like I'm in a much better place. I feel very fortunate in many ways, and gratitude plays a role there. I'm grateful for what I do have. And as I push onwards and forward, making plans, a lot of my goals and like specific plans, not the deeper, more existential plans or goals, or not even health-based plans, which I've got a pretty good handle on. But a lot of the actual goals with my career and business and lifestyle haven't taken a backwards direction. They haven't really taken a hard left or hard right. I was going one direction 2 years ago, and then this happened. And then now I'm like, all right, we're going to just kind of modify this a little bit. And it's 100% based on the fact that we're living in the times that we're living in. But I had to be honest with myself, and I had to look at it, and I had to say, look, this isn't going to beat me down. I'm not going to let it. It came close, but I'm not going to let it. I'm not going to let it beat me down. I'm not going to continuously be a victim. This is important to me. Being a victim, whining, blaming, or complaining has never been something that's been on my radar. I've been against that. I think it's literally, I don't know who I heard the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and somebody said that they thought that was literally equivalent to evil. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I thought that was a little extreme, but it's childish at the very least, and it takes your power away when you play victim, when you're powerless, through the fact that you're blaming outside circumstances, you're blaming others, and you're playing victim. That doesn't get you anywhere. None of that gets you anywhere. So yeah, let me just talk about a few more things before I close off here. There's the replay again I'll put it in the description. There's also a link to a PDF, which is a goal setting form. And one of the most, I think that this is so important, doing a 5 years from now, fill out a form. It's called 5 years from now. You put your name, you put the year. So 5 years from now, it'll be 2027. Yo, I will be 68 years old. Yo, my daughter will be in her 30s, and so on and so forth. The most important part of that is, what are the 10 most critical issues in your business or life right now? When you can list out the issues, it kind of applies to what I just talked about with messes. That's where a lot of your messes are going to come out. And you got to be honest with yourself. When you look at those issues, roadblocks, you're going to be able to see nothing but opportunity if you choose to. So when you look at it as opportunity, you look at it and you go, okay, I'm going to make some goals based on these, and I'm going to eliminate some of them. At least become willing to. That's a step. That's a step in the right direction. Become willing to, instead of becoming a continuous nonstop victim at the whims of destiny. You create your own destiny and you create your own results in your own direction. So yeah, so I would highly encourage you to do that and fill out that form. There's, I don't know, 12 pages, and there's sections and categories for goal setting. And again, it's in the replay. You got to watch the replay to know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to get into it to any great deal right now. Then it's really also, this is not new. This has been brought up by so many people. One of my favorite marketing mentors is Dan Kennedy, and he's a big believer in goals. All the coaching programs I've taken were all goals based, which at the time I was pleasantly surprised, because, I remember one program I signed up with, which was Leadership Management Institute. It was very expensive. It was like $3,500. And it was about a 2-month program where a guy came to my house and we had a meeting. I forget what it was. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. I can't remember. For a couple hours, we had a meeting. And the first thing he said on the first meeting, the first day, he said, this is a goals-based program. And I was like, surprised. But then I was like, pleasantly surprised. But at the same time, I was like, well, I guess there's really no other way to take life, is there, other than to have goals? So it was kind of that. So yeah, there isn't. There's only goals, really, because your goals are your destiny. And I mentioned this in that replay. I'll mention it really quick. Some people believe goals are silly. And I'm like, no, they're not. People who have sort of argued with me and debated with me about that point, and they're like, yeah, goals are silly. I'm like, okay. And then I would ask them about something they've accomplished in their life. And I'd say, well, what about this, that, and that you've achieved in your life? You have a house, you're married, you have a career, and you did this and certification in that, and you have a motorcycle. Were those not all goals at one time? Bingo. They're all goals. Whether or not we sit down and strategically write them out, which is going to help you a millionfold, or it's just something you thought about and pursued. I mean, some people are able to do that, but almost without exception, playing at a higher level requires that you write them out, speak them out, and you'll manifest the words that are expressed. Your destiny is your words, and your destiny are your goals. So yeah, man. So in that PDF that I linked down below towards the end, I forgot I put this here because I just reread it today. The Dan Sullivan question. Dan Sullivan is the coach's coach. He's still going at it. He's in his 70s. He's amazing. So he asked the question, if we were having this discussion 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, from today, and you were looking back over those 3 years, so he's talking about you have this thing that you're going to achieve down the road. So what's your 5-year, 3-year, 4-year vision? Okay, then you ask this question: what has to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy with your progress? That's amazing. So when you have this like 5-year projection and you look at it, you go, well, what has to happen in order to achieve that? So for some of us, we have to lose weight. Some of us, we have to quit cocaine or booze or cigarettes or whatever. Or some of us, we have to learn how to be more confident, or we have to develop a certain skill set in a certain area, whatever that may be. Once you know what that is, then you can put it as a goal, right? Makes sense? You see what I'm saying here? So when you sit in the dark and you're just this big blubbering mess of neurosis, you're going to be bouncing around in the dark and not really busting through the doors that open to a new direction in life. So, yeah, most of us are prone to avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. So that's that instant gratification thing that really is just relegated to children and immaturity. There's a book by Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled. It's classic, really good book, by the way. Highly recommend it. But if I was to summarize that book, and he talks about it in there, he says that the number one characteristic that allows us to rise above and beyond the masses and to rise above and beyond our old selves where we're being held back, and that is delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. So being able to delay gratification is really, really much easier. Having the discipline is much easier when you have a clear set of goals and you start moving on those goals and you push through the fear and the pain and the agony. For some of us, there'll be more of that than for others. But, you know, when you push through the other side, it's, you learn to dance. You learn to dance shamelessly and with a sense of ownership, a sense of pride, personal pride, a sense of identity. Identity is so important. We become more of who we are. Isn't that a good thing? So, all right. I want to hear your thoughts. I think I'm done talking. And this was, I was just off the cuff today. Well, I went through some of my old goal setting strategies, but this morning I got up and I was filling out my my journal, and I was thinking to myself, ooh, what am I going to do for next year? So I was feeling more optimistic than I felt the last December. Last December, we were going back into lockdowns again. I was like, oh God. And I was really struggling with that. And this year I'm feeling more optimistic, and but coming from a different place because of what's been going on and all the nonsense that is being imposed upon us. So do give me your comments down below. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks, guys.